Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast, where we dissect the latest cyber threats faster than hackers can crack a password. Did you like that one, guys?
Yeah.
So I'm your host, one of your co-hosts, Brian, here with Reginald, Andre, and Randy Bryan. How are you, gentlemen?
Pretty good. On yourself?
Doing well. Thank you. Thank you.
I would say it's the calm before the storm, but man, the last 2 weeks we've had so many things to talk about.
No, yeah, not really too much calm out there. Digital world's on fire, guys. This week we've got systems breached at hospitals. We got systems breached, right? We got a bunch of ransomware or post-ransomware follow-ups to kind of do and fill everybody in on how bad their data has been exposed through these attacks. Got some hospitals that were attacked. We even have YouTube creators that are under attack, guys. But remember that LastPass breach from last year? Well, that's back again with a $5.36 million vengeance. So we're going to fill you in on why LastPass is going through trials and tribulations again. And we have Rhode Island to Texas, from universities to tech giants. No one seems to be safe. And when you thought your work from home setup was secure, we got news about Microsoft Teams that might make you think twice before your next video call. So stick around as we unpack the digital disasters of the week. We explore the fallouts from these events, and we arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself from cyber criminals in this cyber war zone. Trust me, you will not want to miss this. You're going to want to hear what we had to say today. So before you click away, stay tuned and listen to the show. So here we go, guys. Let's get right into it. Got a little bit of a different format up on the screen. We're going to share the articles that we're talking about up on the screen as we discuss them, so you can kind of follow along with what we're discussing. And the first thing we're going to get right into, guys, is the ransomware attack on Rhode Island. The state of Rhode Island and their RI Bridges system, which is not for bridges that you drive over with a car, but it's their HR system that they had designed by Deloitte. And unfortunately, that system has suffered a data breach. And the state is coming out and saying early on here that it has exposed residents' personal information after the Brain Cipher ransomware gang hacked this particular system. So what are your thoughts here, guys? It was discovered about 12 days ago on December 5th. And Deloitte has evaluated it, and they're kind of going through the trials and tribulations of this hack now. So
it's interesting because Rhode Island is one of the smaller states, right? That's good that it's found now, but imagine the bigger states that's using this program or using a similar program that, they haven't really released it or discovered yet. That's if it could have happened to any state, the smallest state, but what if Texas is using them or, something like that? That's going to be horrible.
Yeah. And a lot of this information is critical and relating to elderly, and they will be taken advantage of by criminals as this data gets out on the dark web, collated with other data that's out there that's been leaked. So not fun.
No, not fun at all. I mean, we've seen, number one, we've seen a striking number of increases on attacks on states and larger cities. Kind of started with Columbus, But I think these states and local governments have learned a lot from the Columbus attack, and I would say that this one and the last few that we've seen have been starkly different in terms of what they're saying, what they're reporting, and how they're saying things. Because, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, the mayor of Columbus, he basically decided to come out and say, like, this isn't a big deal, and not a lot of data has been stolen, and that turned out to be not true. And I think a lot of these states and local governments that are getting hit are looking at that recent event and saying, hey, we don't want to make that misstep that they made over there. And that's why we're seeing, them come out immediately and basically say, like, yeah, like, this system had enough of the information, private information that these hackers are looking for, that it probably got exposed. Even when they don't have hard physical evidence saying it was, right? I think that's what I'm trying to point out. So, any other thoughts on this, guys?
Like anything, it's just not encrypting the data, but it's extortion, double extortion. So there's a lot more that can be happening to this. And Christmas time is coming. People are working 50% less as far as, not working as hard. So it's going to be more like, I hope not, but it's going to be very interesting to see if Rhode Island was the only state that Deloitte created this specific software for.
So you're purporting potentially this could be a supply chain type of incident where the customers of Deloitte are dealing with this problem for a long period of time. So this is the first of potentially many attacks. Is that kind of where your head's at?
Yeah. If they do this for state governments, large corporations, any critical infrastructure, anything like that.
Yeah, and if they found some specific vulnerability specific to this vertical, this software, yeah, you can guarantee that it'll be exploited, and we'll reach out to more organizations if they can.
Yeah, because I'm sure the way they make this software is, you have a base, a foundation, but then something specific that Rhode Island needed for themselves, and then they just put a module there.
Yep, custom.
Yep.
A lot of software companies do that. They'll have a base and then they sell it and then sell the customization of it. So, yep, good thought. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll let people know if other states with similar software get hit, but it's common. We're going to talk about that later on in the show with a program called Clio, and what Andre's talking about here is playing out with that particular software that we'll get into. So let's move on, guys. We'll talk about another local government that's dealing with a ransomware attack out in Ohio. We have Wood County, and officials are being tight-lipped there about a ransomware attack that's affecting operations for a second week. It seems like Ohio likes to be tight-lipped about things. Most county officials contacted for the story declined to comment. Wood County Prosecutor Paul Dobson is coordinating the response, and they are in the process of investigating, and they really can't talk about the status. He was asked whether state and federal agencies are involved in the investigation, and he said he could not share details and did not know when the attack could end or be resolved. Sounds like somebody who's talking like he doesn't know how this stuff works. Working with experts, we've talked to them repeatedly, and the one thing they say is they can't give you a timeline. Well, that's because you probably and I think this illustrates a good point here, right? I talk about, and we talk about a lot, companies that are completely ill prepared for these types of things, and this is the stuff that they say when they're ill prepared, right? If you don't have a timeline, if you don't know, it means you weren't preparing, right? That's exactly what this means when you say this stuff. It means like, oh crap, we got hacked. Let's hire a bunch of experts to come in here and help us. The experts come in and say, what were you doing for protection? And they're like, nothing. And they're like, well, all right, let's start to work. And they start looking into things, and they're like, yeah, this is going to take us a while to give you some answers. That's, high level how it goes down, basically.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll get with their legal team and kind of talk about how to be transparent, but not put yourself at bigger risk of lawsuits or something like that. But like, I'm looking towards the end, and there is someone was asked, one of the officials, has your office been affected by this? And his answer was, the short answer is no. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean like if you had time to give the long answer, it'd be yes? Like, so they really need to get with their legal team, and they need to sync up on that and do a better job of messaging, because you want to be as transparent as possible without putting yourself at greater risk.
Yeah.
Speaking about messaging, I found it funny when he's quoted to say, well, the police 911 system, like as far as the officers, they can't look at old information and they can't add new information. So your system is broken. It's like, what do you mean? It's like a tongue twister there. It's like, oh yeah,
we can look at it, but we can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's okay. So a couple of things that I like to point out with this kind of stuff. Number one, this is a county attack. And the one thing that I've learned about county attacks is that the municipalities or the towns that rely on county systems and things to function, because that is a thing. Like, I know in New Jersey, it happened in a county, and a lot of things were disrupted, like people being able to buy and sell homes. It happened over in Pennsylvania to the 911 system, to the county, in one county over there. And that impacted all the municipalities' 911 systems and their ability to deliver services and how they were able to do things. So there is, when these counties and these states get impacted, there is a trickle down to municipalities and towns that, rely on certain services that they have to use because, they were consolidated at some point and done at a county level and not at a municipal level. These types of things happen. I was recently with somebody who is in the real estate world, and their county got hit, and it impacted his business tremendously, to the tune of like that ransomware attack prevented houses from being bought and sold in that county for multiple months. Mm-hmm. And this guy has a business where he relies on selling at least 10 to a dozen homes a month. And when that inventory starts to build up and he can't get revenue for, 20, 30 homes, I mean, just think of the economics of that. You're still investing money in these properties every month because you know what kind of volume you need to do to make the money that you want to make. And now you're footing the bill for 3 months worth of inventory, and you're not collecting any revenue as a result because a county was hacked. And it just doesn't impact real estate investors. Yeah. It impacts every family that wants to buy and sell a home during that period of time.
That affects the schools because students won't be able to get in because parents couldn't find a place to live or whatever. I mean, it has a huge ripple effect. You're not wrong.
Right. And we're going to get into a little bit about today in one of the articles about like how these data breaches are impacting people on an individual level, because that's the story that we're telling this year in 2024. And I only think it's going to get worse moving forward. I mean, this is playing out before our eyes. We are in the early stages of individuals getting annoyed that their information is out there, and then they're having to deal with it, right? And I guess that's the thing that bothers me the most with all of this is corporations completely disregard that they have to do this stuff a certain way, the right way. And they don't, and they get hacked, and people's information ends up out there. And then those individuals have to spend the money and have to take the time, more importantly. And as you'll learn in the article we're going to go through today, it's not easy to get this cleaned up. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes hours that typically most people aren't being compensated for. And I think something needs to change around that, because the amount of time that people have to spend on this stuff, I think if each individual calculated their time and put a dollar amount to it, these companies would have to pay a lot of money to these people in the long run, right? And I know that's what class action lawsuits are for. But at the end of the day, if companies aren't going to do this stuff right up front, then they need to pay the price, tenfold on the back end. when Randy, me, and Andre are cleaning up our credit scores and cleaning up our good name because some cyber criminal was able to get enough information from a company who didn't protect that information.
Yeah.
No good.
Yeah, and until there's something like, that pokes the bear, hard enough to kind of just get everybody to wake up, for not to be insensitive, but like a Pearl Harbor moment in the sense of like everybody's like, holy crap, we finally got to take this seriously.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it'll ever happen like that. I think this is the beginning of probably a 3 to 4 year process that needs to play out for individuals where they will act accordingly, meaning they'll not give their dollars to companies like T-Mobile who continually get hacked, right? So, I mean, at some point, I don't, in the future, maybe there needs to be a website where companies are scored based on their ability to protect people's data.
Thing is, on the opposite, I think that us doing these doing these articles in real time, situations is just only numbing the individual to be like, oh, it's just another hack again. Yep, everybody's getting hacked. It's not
right now until they have to spend hours and hours cleaning up their stuff.
Okay.
That's where I think everybody's going to have to go through this at some point to say, hey, enough. And look, one time might not be enough too, right? One time, oh, I had to do this. Yeah. And then when it happens again, you're like, man, I got to do this again. Right. Then people are going to start to, and then other people will organize properly and groups of people will get together where they've been a victim one time and it'll happen organically. But this is clearly something in my brain that's going to happen organically. It's not going to be companies doing the right thing. It's going to be people forcing and the government forcing companies to do the right thing. Yeah. The government can only do so much, in my opinion. Like the government's one piece of how we solve this problem with regulation and forcing companies to do it. Eventually, companies need to start paying the price in terms of their stock price and their profitability for when this stuff happens.
Hopefully there's a security researcher doing something like the percentage of U.S. citizens getting hacked, and there's a chart that just shows that it's just like, skyrocketing until
or the amount of time somebody has to spend each year cleaning up their mess that some cyber criminal created. That that's going to be where that's what's going to have to happen for individuals to take action. And I think that's coming. That's what I'm saying. Like people don't see it, but that's coming. Give it some time.
All
right. Texas Tech. Texas Tech University in Texas. University Health Science Center in Texas and El Paso confirmed a cyber attack, and data on 1.4 million people were exfiltrated in the attack. Interlock has claimed responsibility for the attack, and this ransomware group has been hitting various healthcare sectors for a while now. I know they hit a drug treatment facility near us here, near my office. Not less than a month ago. Same group. So they're going after hospitals and healthcare facilities to no end. And in an announcement published on its website, the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center and Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center El Paso confirmed suffering a temporary disruption to some computer systems and applications. Subsequent investigation confirmed that the disruption was a result of a ransomware attack in which certain files and folders were removed from HSC's network, and the attack allegedly happened on September 17th and was discovered more than a week later on September 29th.
12 days later.
Yes. Thoughts?
Well, first thing is medical records can sell up to $250 per record compared to a $5 credit card.
Right.
So they're going after the money. And once these cyber criminals are in, they're looking for identity theft, fraudulent insurance claims, because many times when they do these type of insurance claims, you the patient won't actually notice. You go to a hospital and you get the bill 6 months later, like, I don't even remember seeing this doctor, this person, or this, so it's a really good way to be able to use a service. And 6 months later, you get the bill, and now you have to go through that dispute process. Same thing you're saying, Brian, and now you have to go through this whole thing.
Yeah, right. You have to prove to your creditor or your health insurance company that you weren't actually the person who received that. In a lot of these cases, like depending on the dollar amount, like, look, if this happens once and it's $200 and it's your credit card company and you're like, hey, I didn't make that charge, no big deal. They got insurance where they can write that off, right? But if you're talking about major identity theft where your social security numbers being used and people are opening bank accounts or getting loans in your name, that's a whole different ball of wax. For you to clean that up, something that shows up on your credit report or something that gets sent to you by your health insurance company, you're going to spend some significant amount of time trying to prove that you weren't the person who received that, right? So, I mean, I know of a guy in New Jersey who had his insurance stolen. Like somebody went into an emergency room with a fake ID, right? They had all this guy's information, just the person who was getting the healthcare had their picture on the license, obviously. And he didn't find out until he got a statement from his insurance company that said, like, they paid for like over $3,000 or $4,000 in like some like broken arm or something like that this guy did not have. So these things happen, right? And there are, illegals here who that's how they get healthcare a lot of times. And there's a whole system on the dark web where people can, basically set themselves up with stolen health insurance, if they know where to look and they use the right resources.
And in this particular case, they have access now to billing data, claims data, diagnosis and treatment information, health insurance information. I could see them sending bills with, go pay here. And if they send them small enough, I'm not trying to give anybody ideas, but if you get a bill for like $26, is it worth your time to go investigate that
Right.
it's actually,
Right.
The correct office link to go pay?
Right.
You're probably just going to pay. You know what I mean?
Potentially,
They
yeah.
send it to enough people, 1.4 million. If they send it to enough people, I mean, they're going to make some pretty good money off this, just doing something like that. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys know what they're doing. They know how the system works here in the U.S. too, even though they're foreign people. They know that, like, sometimes when you file a claim, things aren't necessarily covered 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have information like this person had open heart surgery last year, and you send them a letter or an email saying, "Hey, that open heart surgery, you had only 80% of it was covered. So the other 20%, you're responsible for." And if you can send 100 of those emails and you get one person who doesn't even check and just blindly like, okay, health insurance company says I owe more money, I'm going to write them a check. Boom, there's $2,000 out the door, right? That you're not getting back. And that's what these guys do. And they hope that if they send 100 messages, somebody's dumb enough or naive enough to not look into it and just write them a check or send them the money.
Yeah. In Miami, the city of Miami had to cover all of the QR codes on the pay to park signs because somebody else was slapping a QR code, making the website look just like theirs, and then collecting the $10, $15 to park. And let's just say in a couple of months, you get a bill from the parking authority, you would have probably just not even thinking about it. All right, I forgot to pay one time, or I went over his $15. So the bad guy got his money, and then possibly the city.
All right, guys. So we got thieves here stealing $107,000 from University of Central Florida in a sophisticated hacking scheme. University noticed 12 days later that it had been victimized, that nearly all the money had vanished, and there were no reports of an arrest in the case. and they did this by hacking into a vendor's computer, tricking officials into transmitting the money to a different bank account, and then swamping the school's email system so it didn't notice the warnings about fraud. Wow. Andre, you know a little bit about this. This is kind of in your backyard, but this is taking things to another level based on what humans expect, and the hackers getting out in front of it and disrupting that so it kind of goes unnoticed. So what is the point of them flooding them with emails so they didn't notice the alerts?
Well, before I start, I do have to say my son is applying to go to this school. So I love UCF and we're waiting for those scholarships. All right. So with that said, what you have here is something called, which is a very interesting terminology, which is called a spam bomb attack. So what they were basically kind of doing is spamming that particular department of the entire school, whatever the case is, so much that they couldn't even see the other articles, the other emails coming through, which for me, that's a really, really clever way. So you're doing a crime and you're basically like a magic show, right? You're just trying to now have the person not even be able to see an email to say, you know what, no, that wasn't us, or please look out for any emails because our email got hacked. And because they got thousands and thousands of emails, by the time they could delete all of that junk and go to the legit emails, it was too late because they had already sent the money. And when they went to the bank to do a dispute, the bank was like, sorry, the money you put into the account, not that the thief stole from you, because that's a big difference, but the money that you transferred or you wired to pay, it's closed, or it's there's no money. Yeah, there's no money. So sorry.
Yeah, amazing to think that, like, if you transfer money to a cyber criminal, he's not going to keep that money in the bank account anymore. I mean, they know that that's how this works. If they leave the money in the bank account, the bank can go in and grab it, right? Mm-hmm. But if there's a zero balance on the account, there's nothing to grab, which was the case here, then you're not getting your money back. And there's nothing they can do. They can't call the bank up and be like, hey, your customer, stole a bunch of money from our customer. And those people can be like, no, they sent it to us. And that's how it happens.
And then, pretty much after about 3 days, no matter where it goes, there's hardly anything you can do if you wired it, especially. But, right. This brings up a really good point, though. If you see or are involved in any kind of fraud, so you send out emails, you notice that somebody's in your system, they send out emails, or someone's in someone else's system, they sent you emails, or someone else paid something fraudulently, you paid something fraudulently. If any of that happens, you've got to assume that everything is borked as far as the emails go. And so don't send out, oh, hey, our money got stolen via email. That they've been doing for years. They've been accounting for that. Your email is going to get hidden anyway. This is just a new way to do it. It's going to get hidden one way or another. Pick up the dang phone and call somebody. Call somebody and make them aware of what's going on. If you see this kind of stuff happening, like, if you get a text, you don't want to text the person back. Oh, gosh, I got a weird text from you. Well, duh, they're already in the system. And so they're going to see that and they're just going to delete it. And the real people are never going to see it. So,
yeah.
So the interesting thing about all of this, guys, is that this was discovered through an audit that the state did on this university. And essentially, the Auditor General of Florida basically came back and said, like, hey, this university doesn't have a tight process or procedure around how they pay their vendors. Like, they're very susceptible to these tricks. And they didn't put new procedures in for a while. And then this audit happened and they got caught on the carpet because the audit revealed that there was actually something bad happening back in May. Was it 2023 or 2024? I think it was 2023. I don't know. It was either this year or last year. I can't get it on the article right now. But at the end of the day, they were basically said like, hey, you guys didn't do enough here, and that's why the money's missing. So it was like $107,000 that was missing, went to certain vendors over multiple emails, multiple communications. But I'm saying all this because an audit revealed the gap, right? And I think that that's where most people, they don't get it. Like, you can get audits and you can get assessments from third parties. Like, obviously this college either has a free resource in the state that they can use, or the state mandated that they go through this process. Either way, the audit revealed to them this gap. And that's, ultimately we'll do audits, we'll do cybersecurity audits on companies. And a lot of times, or many times, we will go in and we will find what's known as indicators of compromise, or tell them like, hey, you've already been hacked. And that's kind of what happened here with this audit. It's like, hey, you've already been scammed. You've already been taken advantage of. And now, because you don't have these solid processes, we were able to discover that this happened to you. This happens every day in our businesses to businesses that we go in and audit. The problem is that most companies don't want to go through one of these audits or these assessments. They're afraid of them because, yes, they are revealing. But the only way you're going to get better is by going through a process like this, right? So that's my thing. It's like, hey, here's a company that was being scammed. They went through an audit process and they discovered that they were losing money, but they also needed to do better in terms of their cybersecurity. And I guess I'll end by saying, if you think that you're doing a good job with cybersecurity and you've never had an audit, or you haven't had an audit done recently, it's time to have an audit.
Yep.
Good points.
So let's get into it with this one, guys. Former employee cybersecurity expert discusses Granite School District data breach. So this is what I talked about a little bit ago, about a person who was a victim of a data breach and what they actually had to go through once they discovered that their data was part of the data breach. So we have a former educator, former teacher, Sherry Harris, who didn't realize that she was even part of this hack because she retired, right? And it wasn't until an old coworker's Facebook post where she decided to take action and take things into her own hands to see that as a retired former employer, was she impacted. And she learned that she was, but because she was former or retired, she's reporting that she was never contacted by the school district that this even happened to her. So she's saying that, I'm very disappointed in Granite, a company of that size isn't watching out for their former employees who gave them so many years of hard work and loyalty. We've just been pushed aside, right? And let's kind of talk about that a little bit. Is that the case? Or I don't think whether you're retired, you're former, you're current, I don't think it matters, right? You can paint that picture very easily, like, hey, we were pushed aside, we weren't notified properly. Again, I'll attribute that to lack of planning, lack of having a good incident response plan, understanding that, hey, we're excluding a large portion of people that we still have data for, right? Or maybe going through that exercise makes you realize that you shouldn't be keeping people's data as long as you're storing it, right? I don't know when this Sherry Harris retired, but if she retired more than like 5 years ago, I got to question why the school even has that data still in their system in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one thing to say Sherry worked at the school 20 years ago, but do you still need her ACH information? Because the fact that she had to cancel her bank account says that they still were storing her bank account number, her account number for direct deposit.
Right.
So also probably no controls as far as I could see someone making a decision. All right, let's just go back 10 years because, all that other stuff is old and why would they care about it, right? Or they didn't even know what information that the hacker got. There was no type of logging or any type of information that could specifically say this is all the data that they got. And in that case, when you really don't know, you really just have to assume everything and give proper notification, because they could have also just sent her a phishing email to say, hey, we're doing a 10-year thank you, and everybody gets $100 or whatever.
But she didn't go in to say what was in the phishing email, but the phishing email is how they got her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of law coming down the pipe, if you will. Some's already here, and it does deal with this specific issue. If you don't need the data anymore of your customer, employee, whatever it is, once you don't need it anymore, you just should get rid of it. And it all boils down to, limiting the size of your attack surface, if you will, it's a lot about limiting your risk too. So it would behoove a company, you've got someone that's left, get rid of the data after a certain amount of time. You don't need it anymore. And, anyway, we're seeing a lot of laws coming down the pipe, if you will, and some that are already here dealing with this specific. I'm thinking about the FTC safeguards rule specifically dealt with this. Like, once you don't need a customer's information anymore, and you don't need it specifically to do business, it's okay to get rid of it. You should get rid of it.
Yeah. Good news is that she retired in May, so they weren't keeping her around for a ridiculously poor period of time. But this is the stuff that I talk about when we say this impacts individuals. We already kind of touched on it with health insurance, but here you have Harris, who says, like, look, the breach forced her to cancel her bank account, the only one that she's had for 20 years. An account that she uses to pay major bills. I'll take that as, like, she basically pays everything through that, including her mortgage, right? So it's a time-consuming process. It's complicated. You have to call these people and tell them, like, hey, I'm not paying you on time this month, or I'm not paying you the same way I normally pay you, and I have to change, the account that's linked or whatever. You have to take time out of your day to do it, right? I'm just thinking of, like, some of the vendors I deal with. If I want to call my cell phone vendor, I know it's probably going to be at least 30 to 45 minutes of my life, like, for whatever problem it is, because that's how long it takes for them to authenticate me and get to the point where they can actually say, okay, what's your problem? Right? That process could take 15 minutes every time I call, right? And if I'm on hold or something stupid like that, I don't look forward to calling any of these people that I have to deal with. Banks, cable companies, wireless phone companies, because their support process is what it is, and it takes a while. So I can't imagine what somebody has to go through if they have their mortgage like Bank of America, and how long they have to be on hold to get some things changed, get some bank account numbers changed, or talk to somebody about the fact that you might be paying your mortgage late that month because of it, because of this issue. But the moral of the story is, guys, is that this is going to be more frequent. More people are going to be going through exercises like this to correct the bad stuff that happens when companies get hacked.
Yep.
Speaking of people,
and I don't think we've talked. Have we? Sorry, I have to look at the show notes, but we've been talking mostly about government. Some type of government institution or agency or whatever like that. Because earlier we said that the government needs to step up, but here we are highlighting all the non. They're supposed to be the role models, and and look what they're doing.
They ain't the more role models, Andre, and they're in major catch-up mode with regulations and everything that needs to be done here. And it's coming. People have to realize that the government is going to make you do something about this stuff. They're not going to continue to let companies be hacked and let people like Miss Harris have to deal with her bank account being uprooted and her whole entire life being changed because of that. So It's simply because companies are not doing the right thing, and it has to change. So, but at the same time, here we go talking about Microsoft Teams, right? And how Microsoft Teams isn't safe. Hackers are sneaking in through calls. Here's a legitimate software application that thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses across the world have deployed to their millions of employees. A lot of people use Microsoft Teams. And I've said it. I said it during the pandemic. I said it when the shift from Zoom to Teams started happening at a rapid pace because, I give credit to Microsoft, and I said it. They did a really good job of penetrating the enterprise, and the enterprise basically made mid-market and small businesses switch over to Teams as well. That's kind of how it permeated through the business world and why people went away from Zoom and moved to Teams at a pretty good clip, in my opinion, over the last 2 or 3 years. And in that shift, in that rapid shift, companies did a poor job of educating their employees on how to properly use Teams, so they weren't introducing more cyber risk and compliance issues to their business, two things that we're constantly talking to companies about all the time. So here we have an article, guys. It says it's happening like crazy, where cyber criminals are exploiting Microsoft Teams in all kinds of different attacks. Now, vishing voicemail type messages coming to your Teams are being used in phishing attacks. What's happening here, Randy?
Well, so basically on this one, they sent a jillion emails to the user, and then they call the user. So it's very similar to what we saw before, overwhelming the inbox. So they send all these emails, they call and then so once the user gets them all, then they call the user and say, hey, we're from Microsoft and we're here to help you. We saw that this was happening. I think there's a couple ways that you can prevent this. One, obviously training, but two is set up your Microsoft Teams where it can't get a call from just anybody in the whole world at any given time. If we all did that, well, then they'd probably start setting up calendar requests, because calls that are on a calendar actually can happen, even if you've not allowed that user from that outside organization. But bottom line, this is really easy to prevent. And it all goes back to zero trust. And that's just only allowing on your Teams the organizations that you've allowed. And if someone's not there yet, you just add them and then move on. That could be
speaking from somebody who knows how to do all that stuff. I mean, it's not hard, but it's not like somebody can just log into Microsoft and know how to do this.
Yeah, your average bloke might not know how to do that.
Right. So, in other words, what Randy's saying is like, hey, Microsoft Teams, all this Microsoft cloud stuff is very powerful. And a lot of times individuals and people don't really understand the power of what's behind this system that they're using. And if you kind of let it run as they give it to you, out of the box is the term that they use, you're opening yourself up to stuff like this. So in other words, I think you need to enlist an expert who knows how to configure your M365, and at a minimum, have them audit it, have them show you a gap analysis of where you might have problems one day, and then decide whether those problems are worth you paying somebody to fix them and close those gaps for you. I see two nodding heads.
Yeah, no, this is definitely needed, but this is just another example of a new way of social engineering. Right now, everybody knows if you get a phone call and they're not in your contact list, to be careful, because it's probably spam or some type of scam. But if you're at work 9 to 5 and all of a sudden you're getting a Microsoft Team calls, your guards are much down, because it's like, well, how someone called me on Teams? It must be right. It must be legit. And then from there, they're installing software that you should have whitelisting, where you shouldn't allow those type of softwares to be installed. And And of course, then the user at least in my world, the user doesn't tell you anything until something happens. And like, oh yeah, I think the other day I do remember something like that. And so it's just training is at the end of the day training.
And I would also say one last thing to add to that is don't let random people onto your machine. I mean, and especially if they're using AnyDesk, and I don't mean to slam the good name of AnyDesk, but you know, that's a pretty popular software with the hackers, and the AnyDesk company's aware of that. They're trying to overcome, you know, that image by working with people to stop hackers. It's a very powerful piece of software, but if someone that called you out of the blue is trying to install software on your computer, hang up the phone real quick and call your IT department.
Call the police.
What's going on? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
All right, guys. So, man, this LastPass is just like, it just won't go away. I mean, like at this point, if you're using LastPass, you know, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 7 times. I don't know what it is there, but it's amazing to me that these hackers and these scammers are still able to make money off of this breach and this hack.
Mm-hmm.
But we have these crypto guys that kind of track where crypto payments are going, and somebody did some research and they were able to basically figure out that there's a group of scammers and hackers out there who have a Bitcoin wallet or an Ethereum wallet, and about 5.36 million of Ether has been siphoned off from about 40 victims over, you know, leading up into Christmas here. And the hack happened a long time ago. So the fact they're still able to make money off of that is crazy. But the amount of money that hackers have stolen total for that breach exceeds $45 million. That's not the original hack against the company.
Mm-mm.
This is them taking the information from that hack and then going out and finding individuals to scam and extort and steal money from. That's what this is.
So you mean to tell me they listened to us, not us, me, you, and Randy, but they listened to us saying, get a password manager and put all your sensitive in the password manager, and they still got screwed?
Well, it's a little worse than that. I mean, because LastPass got hacked, rehacked, humiliatingly hacked over and over. I mean, I think there was 3 big major attacks, with the last big one being where they took the encryption keys to their buckets. And I'm going to oversimplify it, but basically you need those two. You need LastPass's key and you need the user's key. And then they just brute forced on the user's side because people didn't have really long keys, which, hey, if they haven't broken it yet, you know, with quantum computing and all that coming out, they're going to break it pretty dang fast. So basically, if you had stuff in LastPass, like during 2022, you can basically count on the fact it's going to be leaked out there. And, you know, so should we not use, I think Andre's question, should we not use password keepers? I mean, you really want to make sure that the software is extremely secure, and you want to make sure that your password to unencrypt it is really, really long. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Andre?
Well, of course, I'm sure LastPass has some nice terms of service that says they're not liable, they're not going to reimburse you. So it's unfortunate. That's all. I don't know. I mean, yes, of course, we need password managers, and LastPass is definitely not going to be on the recommendation list. We did a show about password managers, but it just, you know, again, what I'm just trying to say is if you're the end user and you're like, all right, I'm not going to store it in Chrome, I'm not going to put it in an Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to do what the industry is saying to do, and I still got hacked. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to trust the company that is storing that stuff, right? So do your research, do your due diligence. Even when LastPass got hacked the last time, they had a pretty poor track record. So, And as Andre said, we did probably 3 years ago a whole entire show on password managers.
Yep.
And quite frankly, I think what we said then is still relevant today. Like
Yep.
nothing's changed in the players and the ones we evaluated, and the ones that are at the top of the list are still at the top of the list for us for the most part. So there's no sense in us doing another show to update everybody, because that is still relevant from 3 years ago, which is pretty sad because it shows you the lack of progress in this space in terms of what businesses are doing. We still have companies being attacked because of, not using password managers, not using strong passwords, and choosing to use companies like LastPass or T-Mobile, who have a hard track record of protecting people's information.
Mm-hmm. And just make sure before you move on, if you have any crypto that's like access, addresses, whatever, anything that's stored in LastPass, you need to migrate it. Because if you had it stored in LastPass in 2022, they are going to get into your LastPass, like basically a copy of whatever you had in 2022. And if you haven't changed that address, they're going to steal your crypto.
But they're also coming at you with phishing emails because they know what accounts you've had, so they can easily send you a, hey, reset your password email, something to that effect, where they set up a fake phishing site and you think you're logging into LinkedIn and it's not LinkedIn, right? So that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. So let's talk about this real quick, guys. Hackers using YouTube creators to take their influence and their good name and hack individuals, right? So hackers have basically identified YouTube channels that have a lot of followers and said, hey, that's gold to us, because if we can commandeer that ship just like a pirate and take it over, then we can trick all their followers. And we're talking channels with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers. Use their good name, use their trust that they've built with their audience, and get their audience to click on things and do things, and we can take advantage of that. So that's what's going on here. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, and not specifically YouTube, but how many times have we seen that with Facebook? When you see these business pages get hacked, and all of a sudden they're posting things, and sometimes it's like you don't even know it's hacked. It's just there.
Well, just think about it now. We have AI too. So how hard would it be for them to go, hey, make me an AI video, and they use the creator who's usually on that channel, and now these people think that these videos are actually the person who runs that channel, and it's not.
And try calling Facebook or Instagram to tell them your account's been hacked and see how far you go.
It's not. So, and that's really hard too, because they don't have support. It's usually through text or email or some kind of DM or something like that. They're not going to get on the phone with you. They're not going to talk and reason with you. It's kind of like, hey, we have a manual, and based on what you tell us, we go to a spot in the manual and we give you an answer. That's kind of how it works. And if you're asking a question that's not in their manual, they'll escalate it, and maybe you'll get a response and maybe you won't.
The crazy thing in this particular attack that's highlighted in this article is most likely they took AI to craft a very targeted, very specific phishing email that seems real to creators and say, hey, we want to do a deal with you. And then using that to get you on a call, tricking you to give your MFA, like, hey, we're going to send you a code, give us the code so we can verify, but it's actually your code for your 365 or for your YouTube or whatever. So yeah, more fun stuff.
It's funny because, like, being a YouTube creator, I kind of know the lay of the land, and there's a lot of people out there who would jump at an email that says like, hey, we want to pay you to promote this on your channel. Because quite frankly, the YouTube revenue doesn't pay a whole heck of a lot. And that's really how creators make money, is by getting these endorsement deals and stuff like that. So it's a very effective strategy to try to use to try to take over a creator account, in my opinion. So
And just imagine they're talking with this fake company, sponsor company, and then they're telling the YouTube creator, send me your bank account information, we can deposit the information to. Like, that is so easy.
Yep.
Could be if you're that stupid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good thing YouTube has a mechanism for that. Like, they already have your bank account information and they should be able to pay you through YouTube. But some people like to do things outside of the system. So
Yeah.
that's your risk. All right. So we're going to I have a couple minutes here. I got to wrap up here in 2. But we have 2 articles and they're kind of related, right? So we'll roll into the next article after we talk about this one. But foreign hackers need to face real consequences, right? And this is an article basically saying like, hey, 8 U.S. telecommunication providers were hacked and we kind of are doing nothing about it, right? And this was my point with the whole drone uproar. Like, people are all worried about these drones. Like, you got Chinese hackers in your cell phones.
Yes.
Not in your cell phones, but anything that goes through your cell phone that's going up to the telecommunications company is what they have. And you're worried about what a drone can do. Like, quite frankly, a drone can't do anything more than a satellite up in space can already do. I mean, this is way worse from a personal and from a national security perspective, in my opinion. So I'm just kind of opening the topic that, Representative Waltz said that there has to be a higher cost and consequences for those who steal Americans' data. I also think on the other side, the companies that choose to not protect it properly need to have consequences as well. So I don't know what consequences he's suggesting. But President Trump is basically, or somebody from his administration is basically saying we should go on the offensive and hack them. So I'm just going to open up the discussion there, guys. Do you think it's time? Do you think it's time that we hit back when companies get hit?
Yeah. Oh no, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, this is all you, man. This is all Texas right here, man. Go for it.
Wow. Well, I do not disagree. So you have different philosophies. One philosophy is you sit back in a defensive posture, and it's just part of doing business in 2024, that you ward off the attackers. In fact, sometimes, like for me as a private individual, to quote unquote hack back, even if they're currently hacking me now, which it's easier to hack them while they're hacking you. But even for me to do that, sometimes it's illegal. And what they're saying here is we're not looking for like, oh, happy people not doing anything wrong and we're going to go start attacking them just because someone over in their country attacked us. They're saying that if the attackers are out there and they're doing their thing, let's go after them. Personally, I think we need to learn from it anyway, that we would learn valuable skills doing that we probably need to fight the next cat and mouse game that's, a year down the road or whatever. So, this is kind of I feel like it's a hypercharged article.
Yeah.
Trump's not saying declare cyber war on China.
He's not saying anything. It's the same guy, Mike Walls from Florida.
It's just, hey, it's time to.
That's why we should toss it to Florida, because in my opinion, Florida is redder than Texas.
There you go.
But so he basically says we've been over the years trying to play better and better defense when it comes to cyber. I don't think he's wrong there, but I don't think look, I'm going to just draw this analogy. Our trying to play better defense is like rec league football attempt, not like tier 1, I'm going pro level attempt at going, you know what I'm saying, guys? Like we have not made a concerted attempt across all businesses to protect, to defend. That still needs to increase, in my opinion. So he's a little misguided in the fact that he's like, oh, we're doing all this stuff to defend, and that's all the focus has been. It's kind of like, no, really, we've been calling attention to it, but people haven't been taking action. So the defense needs to go up. And then he goes on to say, we need to start going on an offense and start imposing, I think, higher costs and consequences to private actors and nation state actors. I'm going to challenge his thinking here and say that this has already been tried and done, and it's failed. We tried to do this with hacking back against Russian cyber criminals, and it wasn't very successful. Every once in a blue moon, our government's able to come out and roll out the dog and pony show and say, hey, we got some cyber criminals. But that doesn't happen nearly frequently enough to slow this crap down. So that's kind of my opinion on this guy's kind of ignorant view on the history of this stuff. He needs to educate himself on what we've done over the past 10 or 15 years before he starts going out there saying like, hey, we can hack back. If it were that easy just to hack somebody back after you got hacked, we probably already would be doing it.
Well, someone in the comments said, it's not the message, it's the messenger. So maybe with the new administration, things will be able to be taken more seriously. And if, administration says, hey, if you do this, or if you continue to do this, this is what's going to happen. And they're going to be scared.
Look, Andre, you call me a bad name, I'm going to punch you in the face. Well, I got to get to Florida first for that to happen. It's not so easy, right? You know what I mean? It's like I can sit here and say, like, yeah, we're going to hack back, but it's not easy. You got to find them first. Good luck.
Okay. But one thing that will happen for sure is when the retaliation does come, if they do the tit for tat, businesses will suffer because they're going to go after the small business. They're going to go after corporations even more than they're doing now.
Right. So you have to shore up defenses before you decide we're going to go attacking, because they're going to attack back twice as bad. That's kind of what I was saying. Like, we still need to shore up defenses before we start thinking about going after these people like this.
Well, so you said it's already been tried. Yeah, but it's already been tried, but that was in the past, and things are changing so fast. So maybe they can't try or shouldn't try the exact same things they've tried before. I don't know, man. I still have a little pushback on that, like from a standpoint of we just sit around here and wait for them to attack us. You know what I mean? And I know that's not what you're saying, but we do need to shore up our defenses. But, are we just gonna? I don't know. It's still I'm still struggling with the whole thing a little bit.
I mean, look, if it were easy to find these people, I'm totally on board with you.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Right? But it's not easy to find these people. I mean, not easy at all. Because if we were able to find them, I think we would be doing things like this. Because we know that their network security sucks once we get there. You know what I mean? So that's not the problem. The problem is like, where in the world are these people?
Yeah. So like, back in the day, you don't hear about this much anymore. And it's called different things, but I'm going to call it, we used to have like a sacrificial lamb where you have like a laptop that's on the outside of the, it's still part of the business.
Yeah, it's called a
yeah. And it's on the outside of the, protections, and, it gets attacked, and then that helps you to like learn like where they're coming from or whatever. I don't want to get on too huge of a tangent. They had a lot of problems in Mexico with banditos attacking tourists. So the federal government just started pretending to be tourists, and then the banditos would attack them, and then they would take them out right there. Like, so why can't we do some kind of like, honeypot or sacrificial lamb or whatever you want to call it, hey, I'm just a little old granny, help me.
You should submit your proposal to Trump and see what happens. That's a great idea. I mean, I'm not pulling your leg here. That was actually probably one of the smartest things you've ever said on the podcast.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Setting up a honeypot like that and setting them up and like having the Space Force set up honeypots all over the place, and then you try to hit our honeypot, we're coming.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a legitimate business that gets hacked? Why can't it be a fake business that the government set up? And now, boom, we know who you are.
There you go.
Good insight, guys. Appreciate it. Long show today, hour and 4 minutes. We got to hit the end button. Go make some money. Stay safe out there.
All right.
Don't know what the holiday schedule is going to look like, but we'll get a show or two in before the end of the year. See everyone next time.
It's next Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Well, that's Christmas Eve, so we might do Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay.
See everyone next week. Take care.
Next Monday, 12 o'clock.